who's fighting, struggling, surviving, fighting for an equal right for the people of Blair.
And Australia.
And Australia. And so the next person I want to introduce is one of these people who are struggling with us. I want to introduce Jeana Brown of the Redneck Party. Woo!
To be a part of this gathering today. I can honestly tell you my co-founder Zach Light wanted to be here. He sends his love and respect to you all. Financial difficulties, of course, is a lot of it keeps us all down right now. But Zach is a Gullah Geechee pastor. He's 72 years old, a black man that's been in the struggle for social and economic equality for years. And I listened to that man one day and thought, he sounds like my grandfather. Of course, my grandfather was from Cabin Creek. But when you're speaking truth to power and you're speaking honesty and you're talking about human and dignity and rights, there's the same kind of talking that's happening. So I walked over to this big black man and I told him the story of the Redneck War. And my God, he was liberated. Because he said in the 13th Amendment when they freed slaves, he knew there were white indentured servants. They did not understand that there were white slaves that died in indenturement as well. Folks were freed. So he had never heard the story of where black and white equality came and when the first union that gave equal rights and equal pay. So I can only tell you from his humble Gullah Geechee community, which is the only blacks that got the 40 acres and a mule. They're right there on the coastline of South Carolina and Georgia, a piece of Florida there at the northeast corner. He sends his love and warm regards to you all. Now, just a little second about the Redneck Party. I get kind of emotional, so I wrote this because I thought I don't want to get emotional. Okay, so I thought if I do this, I can stay on task. Because see, in my desire, I became an organizer in 08. I worked on the Obama campaign. I went to Arkansas in 09 working for health care, and that's where I really saw the poverty and the hardship that most common folk are facing every day. And I came home and started a group called Team Rural. And what Team Rural was is a way for us out here in these type of areas where we're a little isolated, liberals are a little isolated, and we don't have a lot of support. I decided we're going to band together and create some support for each other. So what was funny, and I talked to Wilma Steele about this, is like a consciousness, a collective consciousness that's coming from people and from God. I think it's God's Spirit moving. And I don't say that lightly because I have a very close relationship with Him and I don't want to upset Him. But the truth of it is, when we started this Redneck Party, we didn't know about you guys. We didn't know about the museum. We didn't know about this. And then when we heard about the march in June and we pulled it together, we're just like, we got to find these people. And then Wilma said, somebody asked her, well, you got to know those people with that Redneck Party. And I'm like...
They thought, you know, we knew each other because we were saying the same thing.
But we're saying the same thing because, as Zach said, it's the history that says it all. If we just stick to the history. The honesty, integrity in the history is going to what keep us safe. So I say, inbuilt in man is an evolutionary urge for oneness and harmony with all that is. And it is the necessary work of daily living where we find conflict with one another. In that area of our lives, foremost in our thoughts, is the basic needs of daily living, shelter, food, health care, and clothing for our families. You know, FDR said necessitous men are not free men. And those are folks that are lacking in just necessity. See, they can't be free. He was well aware during the Great Depression that many men's confidence and their sense of manhood came from their ability to provide for their families. See, it's the same today. This harsh recession and these austerity cuts and education and things that are happening, it lends adversity to our ability as a people to provide basic needs to our families. So these are truly kind of calamitous times. It's also why I decided to develop the Redneck Party. It's an answer to the Tea Party. It's a working class party answer to the Tea Party. My mind goes back to stories I was told by my grandfather. About 3.5 years he lived in tents in Paint Creek. And, you know, my great-grandmother's rugs were ruined because she spread them on the floor because she had children learning to crawl and walk. And she was lucky, they said, because they didn't have dirt floors. And then Grandfather would tell me when they were children, they'd always hit their belly when they heard the train coming. I'm too preaching to the choir, but when I tell folks this story, they don't really believe it, you know. But he said that was because, you know, they would take the shots at the striking miners. And when he was just a little boy, you know, he just remembered being afraid when he heard a train coming. So I can remember his credulity. When I asked him, did that really happen? You know, and I might have been about 16 when I asked him that. But I saw him get just fiercely angry, and these tears well up in his eyes, as if to ask me, what in the hell are you asking me that for? You know, and he cursed me. And I remember, my grandfather, he never cursed much, not me, but he cursed me. And his eyes, they really did widen with this pain. I could sense this pain because he was telling me a truth that was his truth, his childhood, his memories. And so, you know, I didn't want to question anymore the stories he told me because I kind of got quiet. And I realized I needed to listen. So I want you to go home from this place, every one of us here, and ask the older folks in your family, if you have them that are living, that knew the Depression and the 40s afterward, and ask them what their lives were like back then. Because, see, I found out from asking my granddaddy questions that his daddy was 10 years old when he went into the mine. And so he had already been in the mines for 17 years when the March on Blair Mountain happened. A young man of 27. So, with this union being the first to pay black and white equal for a day's pay, see, today we see us blaming immigrants for the lack of jobs. When in 1921, they stood shoulder to shoulder with their white brothers and sisters and their black sisters and brothers. And see, when I traveled here, I wondered about the days to come after we leave here. And how can I apply the truth of what I've learned of the past? And how can we do that in our lives today? We must overcome the illusion of separatism. We must overcome this illusion of separatism that darkens this nation. We are standing here dedicating this community center and museum to the memorial of Blair Mountain. And that CNN documentary that aired a few weeks ago, it was incomplete. It was incomplete, folks.
Insult.
And even in the South, we knew that. It should have been called the second battle for Blair Mountain.
Right.
See? Right? Because there was a first. And we're not going to let them forget that. See, the first, our forebears, black, white, and immigrant, took it upon themselves to declare that they were going to be their brother's keeper, one for all and all for one. And they determined the destiny for working people, that it was going to be respectful to the earth, they valued human life, and they was going to be economically fair to working people. Now today, we must honor that memory by recalling this tremendous 5-day gift, a collective anger that we will not go back, nor will we allow their country to push this memory aside. Necessitous men are not free men. When we lack the ability to provide for our families, it's hard to see past that current light bill that's due. And when the miners went home in 21, they did return to poverty. They did return to maltreatment. And in some instances, they returned to jail. See, one thing it did do back then, though, was bring a collective consciousness to this country that they was not going to stand alone here. See, Blair Mountain stands alone today. And in the mind of most people in this nation, they don't know about this story. It's been ignored and rejected as an unworthy for the history books. And until we as a nation recall the blood, sweat, and tears, our stained past, and the labor battles that we fought, we cannot let this mountain be removed. And we must hearken our minds to clarity of purpose for the Redneck War of 21. I am my brother's keeper. And we become keepers of this mountain forever. And until this case is settled, I want you all to always talk about Blair Mountain, just to anybody that'll listen. Because when we formed the Redneck Party, we decided our logo, our motto is we're fighting cheap labor conservatives. And we said our answer to that is, what side are you on? But, you know, today, which side are you on? You want to save that mountain or you don't want to save that mountain? I'm on the side of saving that mountain.
There you go.
Thank you.